In this video, we're going to discuss ways to clean your image up a bit. Right now, I'm in Photoshop with the raw settings, so just opening up your content-aware image. This is not a great example of a final project to turn in, but this is a good example of some different areas that need cleaned up, so some spots in the background. Especially if you have a white backdrop, you're going to notice a lot of little specks or shadows that should not be there. And even if you have a darker background, you'll start to notice that as well. Now, one tool that works really well for this is the spot removal tool. And that's found at the top of your screen here, so spot removal. And if I zoom in, you'll see a few of my spots here. So, for example, this one on the left. If you click and drag to cover that spot, it's going to automatically choose another area and fill that in. So it's using this color and adding it here. So that gets rid of my spot pretty easily. Here's another one. So I'm grabbing another area for that spot. And I'm just going to kind of go around the picture, look for those spots to remove. And begin to do that. Now you'll notice that if you have a lot of spots, it might be kind of tricky. So for example, I got rid of one spot here, but it took this area and added a spot. So be careful that it's not selecting an area with a spot. So you can kind of slide these around and adjust it to make sure that it has that clean background where you want to kind of copy and paste that there. So then when you're finished and all of your other edits are done on here, you're going to hit OK. And another thing you can try out is either the clone stamp tool, where you are taking an area and kind of manually overlapping it. So let me zoom in again. So here's the spot. I can hold down Option, select the area that I want to paste over here. So I'm selecting this area over here, and I basically am painting that, and you can see that little plus button that comes up. So I'm painting that spot where the plus button is on top of my mark, and that helps it to disappear. Another tool that you can try if you find a lot of spots is this little BandAid tool over here. So you can click on that, and basically you're just clicking and dragging again across the area that you want to get rid of. So it will automatically fix up those spots for you. Now you'll have to do this for basically every picture. There's going to be a lot of different spots that you'll notice. There might even be some spots on the object itself, so make sure that you're kind of smoothing some of those areas out on your object, making sure that there's no specks or different things that will get in the way of the image. Something else that you can do if you have a lot of spots in the background is use a Gaussian blur and just blur the background. Even if you don't have a lot of spots, that's something I would try and see if you like the look of it. That's going to help to just draw more attention to your focal point, basically. So be sure to always duplicate that background layer. So I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm going to select the background. So I'm just clicking on my quick selection tool here, selecting the background, which should go pretty quickly if your background was one of those solid colors. And I'm going to go up to the top of my screen and find Filter, Blur, and then the Gaussian Blur. And you can make sure that preview button's selected so you can preview what it looks like. But as I adjust this, you can see that background starting to blur a little bit. So here was where it started, and then this is that background being blurred. So you can play around with that. That will get rid of all of those little smudges and really tie everything together. I'm going to hit OK and Command D to deselect the background. One thing you'll notice while adding this blur, however, is that if you zoom in, you'll see some of those edges that look kind of harsh. So you can see that it almost looks cut and paste, and you don't want that, especially with the background and lighting that you worked hard to set up. So what I would try is adding a mask to your image, and then with this mask, use the gradient tool. So over on the left, I have the gradient tool selected. Change that gradient to a radial setting, so I changed my gradient to radial, and then I'm just going to, from the center, click and drag out. And that way, you'll notice in my layers here, the mask is creating this kind of halo or circle around my watch that fades out. So then I just have more of the blur around the outside, and that blur is fading into the watch. So it's not that harsh outline. You can still see some of the shadows. So definitely try adding that gradient. You can click and drag in different directions to see what works the best for your photo or what gives you the best effect with the gradient and the blur. But try that out. I think that definitely ties things together, especially having the blur more centered on the outside of the photo. So double check and make sure that all those spots are gone. Try and just continuously zooming in on your object, look around. It's going to tie everything together, make it look a lot more professional, having everything cleaned up with no distracting specks.